How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm living the dream.
Love it.
Happy Easter Monday. I think for our uh, Catholic friends, it certainly started out with some sad news this morning. I heard the Pope passed away, and but I trust everybody had a great Easter holiday weekend, uh, doing Easter egg hunts and all the stuff that comes with Easter. So, Matt, you good?
I'm good. Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's jump into the numbers. I like to start there, obviously. Um, before I put the numbers up, Matt, the Easter weekend it always creates an interesting look at the numbers because I think we talked about last week. There's this big discussion around, do you put your listing on the market right before a holiday or do you wait till after the market? So I think it'll be interesting to see if it shows up in the numbers. Um, uh-oh, can you see my screen?
Uh, yes, but we can also see other stuff. So
Okay.
you need to expand that. Yeah.
All right. Hold on. How about that? There we go. All right. So, Stephen, if you will check this number, I don't think we only put 107 new listings on the market in Fulton County,
Mhm.
uh, but 149 went under contract, which is really good, right? So, let's take a look at that, and 314 pending, which. And we had 324 at the end of the month, 316. So 314 seems to be a pretty healthy number. And we had 233 closed out in the last 7 days in Fulton County. Um, Maybe a little affected by the holiday. I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe a little, but it's not a drastic change, Brett. So I don't think too much.
Yeah, I don't see much there. If I run over to DeKalb, this is what I was wanting to see in Fulton. Maybe Stephen will get Fulton put in here in a second. 626 is a dip, right? So I think last 7 days, the inventory coming on the market probably dipped in most counties because people were waiting for the holiday, right? Um, but it's still a good number, right? Like 626, we only had 619 back in March. But 626 new active inventory, 75 went under contract in the last 7 days. So, Matt, I mean, if we're looking at DeKalb County, we were all excited at triple digits going under contract there for 3, 4 weeks in a row. And then the last 2 weeks dipped down to 64 the week of spring break and then 75 the week before Easter. That certainly looks like a lull to me.
Looks like a lull. So is it a holiday lull or is it an uncertainty lull? Is the question.
I don't know. Let's go back to Fulton real quick. So I didn't see it as much in Fulton.
Yeah.
Like you didn't see a big dip in numbers, but in DeKalb County, that was a pretty big dip in how properties going under contract.
Yeah. Absolutely.
157 pending, which I would assume is a result of less under contract, and then 158 closed out in the last 7 days. So I think this, Rick, I see you on here. You always make the comment around the real estate's hyper local, right? So we all right now we're in the same city, yet Fulton County and DeKalb County are having two different experiences right now. What do you think?
Just circumstantial, I would think. I don't know that there's such big that's not hyper local. I mean, that's a county. And
Yeah.
so, but if one county's up big and another's not, I think it's just circumstantial. I can't imagine that there's a correlative that made DeKalb County lock up and Fulton release the brakes.
There you go. All right. Well, let's look at Cobb. So Cobb went up on new listings hitting the market. So there went that whole theory around people sitting on the listings before Easter weekend. But 102 and Cobb, with the exception of 99, which more or less is 100, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row, has popped over 100 properties going under contract in the last 7 days. I don't know, Matt, you're out in Cobb County. What's the feeling?
The feeling is, I mean, the last 4 weeks we've had more earnest money roll in than we have in the last 7 years. So it feels good, and I guess it's getting stronger. And who knows, next week it may dip, and Rick will just say it's happenstantial. We'll see.
Yeah. So, you know, I was
Four
looking
weeks,
over. Go
4 weeks
ahead.
in a row, I would argue maybe it's not. Maybe there is a
Yeah, there you
positive trend,
go.
something in the water.
Yeah.
I was going over numbers with Rick over the weekend, and I'm going to be general for a minute. Right now, closed sales volume in the city for first quarter was down about 6%, and closed units were down about 10%. And I'm being general. Just take it that way for a minute. So first quarter, to my dismay, I was hoping 2024 was our bottom. But yet, first quarter 2025 is coming in behind first quarter 2024, which is not really exciting, but it's not drastically down. It's down less than 10% in volume. Um, but I think everybody kind of understands that the world got weird first quarter 2025. Economically, consumer confidence, interest rate uncertainty. There's this conversation around tariffs or no tariffs, or I think that played into the consumer mentality in first quarter. And my hope is that wanes in second quarter and the consumer just starts pushing forward into this spring market. So we'll see, right? Like it's too early to tell. But I don't think 2025, the way it started, is going to look much different than what 2024 looked like. I don't think we're going to be much greater, and I don't think we're going to be any worse. I think it's going to be pretty, what's the word? Nothing burger conversation around what 2025 is going to look like compared to what last year looked like. Any different opinions? I always start the year with all this hope and optimism, and then the numbers come in, and I go, "Whoa,
Yeah, I mean, Brett, if you look at national projections, what the experts are saying, which could mean anything, they are literally projecting it almost to be an equal of last year, which is 4.1 to 4.2 million sales. So anything could happen. But that's kind of right on par with what you're saying, and I would agree with.
yeah." So, if you're an agent, you're on this call, you're listening to this. How do you translate this into dialogue with a seller and a buyer? What's it translate to?
Relationships instead of ROI, I think ROR, return on relationships. I think compelling people to see an opportunity when there is one that aligns with their goals is cap. That's king. It's relational. I don't know that the market's gonna. There's no wind coming that's gonna lift your sales strategically from the market that I think any of us see. So it's gonna have to be your personal sphere, your experience, your double down that's gonna make the difference and create a winning proposition.
There you go. Steven texted me, refreshed it. So let's just hit Fulton real quick. Um, Matt, any thoughts?
I mean, Rick's exactly right. And I'd say, you're not at 6 million in sales, you're at 4 million sales, which is a, 25-30% reduction. It's still opportunity at the end of the day. There's still people moving, there's still relationships happening. And I would say every month that goes by that it's not easy is just another month of a hardworking agent gaining market share. And lots of agents aren't going to work that hard month after month. So it's opportunity as well.
There you go. So the number is 1,058 new active inventory hit the market in Fulton, which is down, but I expected it to be down, and I expect next week to be up, just because of the holiday weekend. All right. So interest rates are bouncing around like crazy. This morning they're at 6.87, which 2 years ago you would have thought is a crappy interest rate. Today, you should be thinking that's good. I think anything under 7 right now is creating buyer demand, is creating movement. I think great credit, maybe you're getting something closer to 6.5. Bad credit, you might have people closing with over 7. but a great lender is watching this like a hawk and is helping you get your buyers locked in at the best possible moment, right? And that's why it's such an important thing in real estate to have such a great lender partner that you work with. The other thing I like to point out is these rates on 15-year FHA and VA, man, somebody's probably locking some loans close to 6% in these three categories. And those are really good rates right now. So I absolutely would be considering these, and I think you're going to see more FHA deals, more VA deals as the inventory continues to grow. And one of our topics today is your sellers are sitting on the market a lot longer than that you have in the past, and they should be considering different things today than they were 2 years ago. And that's exactly what this article talks about is it says buyers back off, sellers face reality as slowdown continues. And I think if you just read the headline of this article, you might think that just means prices. And you might even go down a road of saying, oh, prices are going to come down. In the luxury market, Rick, you had a funny quote an agent down in South Florida gave you around somebody asked, well, are all this inventory because they're definitely in a buyer's market down there.
Yeah.
And I somebody said, well, are they coming off their prices, selling for losses? And what was the quote?
You can't rob the rich.
Yeah, so the rich are just sitting on them.
Yeah, they don't have big debt, they don't have big concerns, and unless there's some kind of economic strife in their future, they'd rather wait. And they're also probably a little more savvy than some, and recognize that markets fluctuate and that timing is everything.
So I think the luxury consumer in Atlanta is probably no different. Would you agree?
I would think if you have capacity to hold out, why wouldn't you? Unless there's some external force that's pushing on you.
Yeah. So where does this translate outside of the luxury market? Um, if you're a real estate professional today, you've got listings that are going to sit on the market 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 months. And are you prepared for that? And I also think what reality means, obviously, price is a chunk of that reality conversation, but it's not 100% of the reality conversation. I think there's conversations around making necessary repairs before you go on the market that probably need a little more urgency too. I think there's simple things like painting a front porch, painting a door, whatever you suggest needs to happen in order to make a good first impression is probably needs a little more urgency, a little more emphasis as a listing professional today. I think staging is another factor in that, ultimately your listing has more competition on the ground today than it's had in many years in the past. And you need to take note to that. And how would you prepare for that? What is y'all's advice?
My answers have a very detailed marketing strategy outlined up front and then illustrate it virtually daily. Give them feedback, give sellers feedback that you're on the job every day, every week, literally minute to minute. Because as soon as things go quiet and your property becomes I would say the term stigmatized, which means it's been on the market probably 45, 60, 90 days. At that point, buyers they're going to scrutinize why you haven't sold and you're no longer this hot commodity that's fresh. And so you better have a narrative that keeps the relationship alive and that they know you're trying because silence is deadly and when it comes to listing properties.
There you go. Matt, any thoughts?
Yeah, just dusting off the old seller presentation, the seller listing strategies. In 2019, we had to use this, and there were about 20% more homes on the market. So it wasn't that long ago. It's all relative. But what is your communication plan with your client week to week? And are you setting that expectation right at the front?
Yeah. I want to make y'all aware of something, and you're probably going to get a little emotional about this, but breathe through it. and I was on a call for Thursday with Gary Keller, and he was one of the comments he made. He said, "Listen, Zillow has the eyeballs of America. Like more people go to Zillow than any other website to look at real estate." He goes, "That's a reality. It's not a debated conversation." So if you have a listing on Zillow right now, and I pulled up just a random listing on Zillow, and it's listed for 820. It had a price cut of $20,000 on April 7th, and it's been on the market 80 days. But are you aware that Zillow has added this offer strategy section to their website? They are now suggesting offers. So, mind you, remember, it's listed at 820. So now Zillow is saying a strong offer is 794,000 or greater. And over 90% chance of winning an offer at this offer price. Or to be competitive, it's 788 to 794, moderate 785, weak under 784. So they're now taking AI, using insights, balanced market. The market in Blandtown doesn't favor buyers or sellers, i.e., it's a balanced market. 80 days, median days for a home to go pending in this area is 28 days. This one's been on the market 80. So they're taking that into account. Offer strategy. This home has been listed for more days than the median. There may be room for negotiation in a balanced market. Zillow's kind of getting in. Now, you better believe the consumer is seeing this. Your buyers are probably seeing this. Now, your seller is probably seeing this too. So, what? First of all, what's your reaction to this? One, and two, how do we use this in conversations with sellers and buyers?
I'll let Matt take that one.
Y'all hadn't
Yeah,
seen this before, have you?
yeah.
New. It's new.
No real emotional reaction on my part. Yet I would say, I would hope Rick would agree, is that you better know your stuff as well as this, and you better communicate your data as well. And I know these people showing up to the calls know their data, know this stuff, and there's a lot more to these conversations. But if you're an agent and you're just putting out basic information or not really educating your client, this looks pretty appealing to me.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the back to the relationship and back to actually knowing your data at the highest level and be able to communicate that, Brett, versus someone clicking on this because it looks smarter than you as an agent.
Yeah, I think this could become evidence for price reduction conversations with the seller. I think this could become evidence to get a buyer to be realistic in their offer. If somebody's coming in being unrealistic in offers, I think this could become a realistic conversation. But I also think it's just data. It's not, it's an artificial intelligent insight around projected sales price and things like that. Yet I would venture to say the data has probably got some pretty good intel into it. Anyway,
Hey,
be
hey,
aware. Go ahead,
Brad.
Ken.
Hey, so yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, the reality is, everybody looks at Zillow and we know that it's AI and we know that Zillow doesn't have the greatest accuracy, but the reality is the public doesn't. So it's a continual education thing with the public. The reality is what they see is truth. And so we as agents, now that we know about this, I am glad that it's on the third page, which is a good thing. So a lot of people won't see it, but the reality is we can leverage that to our benefit to get price drops as well, or strategically price it. So we know we just need to be aware of that and be able to prepare for that conversation.
Yeah. Mark Jones put this also something to show sellers when talking about the cost of overpricing your property.
Yeah, it says
Yeah.
right there, 80 days on market, median is 28. I mean, there's lots of conversations. Mark's right too.
But I mean, I think, Ken, to your point, it is on the third page, but I believe the consumer has been trained to look for a Zestimate, and the Zestimate's at the very bottom.
Yes, I just looked at one of my listings and I'm pretty much dead on, which is a good thing. So
There you go. Good job, Ken.
And knowing that they're going to likely go here, you just want to get out in front of it and make sure your narrative is more compelling and accurate.
Yep. Speaking of Zillow, we're still in this crazy navigation around private listing, not private listing. Now, if you go private, Zillow's going to ban your listing. If you're not following all this, I'm going to tell you the criteria you need to know here in a minute. But the industry is under a chaotic innovation period, and it's hotly debated on both sides of the coin. And we don't specifically have a stance. And our stance would be we're watching with our popcorn in hand to see how this whole thing plays out. But basically, what you need to know is there is this concept called private listing. And the private listing means that you would list a property and market it to the public before the mandatory put it into the MLS timeframe. So, which is very grayly defined. And there are advocates on one side of the coin that say sellers need choice and they should be able to test the market and market their property before it ever goes in the MLS, because once it goes in the MLS, days on market start ticking, which hurts the marketability. And then the other argument on the other side is the maximum exposure of a property drives the best price to a seller. And it is hotly debated in the real estate space. The other conversation I had with Gary Keller last Thursday was, he said, listen, guys, he said, 2 years ago, I wrote a $75 million check for a lawsuit that we thought was going to tear the whole industry apart. And he goes, I would venture to say your business is not much different today than it was before that NAR settlement. And he said, it was a big nothing burger, except the fact that I wrote a $75 million check. And we laughed, he didn't. And he said, but right now there's this conversation around private listing networks. And is it good? Is it bad? He said, I would venture to say 2 years from now, the same effect. It's going to be a nothing burger. It's not really going to change our industry hardly at all, because the data around private listing networks is it really doesn't sell the listings. Like less than 10%, less than 5% might even sell. He said, but it's certainly front page news and everybody wants to talk about it right now. So Zillow's CEO, after backlash, came in and clarified the listing ban. And this is what his clarification points are. He says Zillow's access standard, which bans listings that aren't added to the MLS within 24 hours of public marketing, does not apply to these categories. True private listings on MLS for sellers who need privacy throughout the life of the listing and never intend to market it online. Office exclusives that are within a brokerage company but not publicly marketed or available to consumers directly. In other words, if Ken Liberty has a listing and he decides to market it within our brokerage company, but not to the consumers for 30 days before it goes on the market to anybody that has a buyer in the wings, that's not subject to the Zillow ban. It's all about whether it goes to the consumers or not. Coming soon, and all other pre-marketed listings put in the MLS and distributed to all participants for display. So if you put it in the MLS as a coming soon, that satisfies Zillow. Delayed marketing listings put in the MLS and distributed to all participants for sale by owner listings, rental listings, and new construction listings sold by the builder. I think it's a hot mess out there right now, but you need to be aware of this because you could damage a seller if you decided to do something and then Zillow red flags your listing and decides it's not going to go on to Zillow. So you just got to be paying attention and taking note of what's going on. Now, I will say this. There is potential liability here. So I want you to think about if you were to do a listing and you privately listed it and you sold it before it went into the MLS. And then the neighbor sells a comparable house down the street for more money because it went into the MLS. There's a potential liability there of, hey, you didn't tell me to put it in the MLS and I'd get more money. And vice versa, right? Like it's gonna roll out it just like everything in real estate around disclosure. So NAR came out with a disclosure document. EXP rolls out their disclosure document. We've got a copy of it, which just I think it's a good sample. It just says selling a property privately without inclusion in the multiple listing service or broader marketing channels can significantly limit visibility and reduce buyer competition, which may negatively impact your final sale price and terms. Limited buyer exposure, financial risk, longer time on market, no public portals, blah, blah, blah. Sign here. I think our industry is around all this is going to end up with a whole lot more disclosure. Thoughts?
You have a responsibility to your clients. It's a fiduciary responsibility, legal and ethical, as an oath in our business. And if you breach that by not giving them the best advice that benefits them best, I think you do open up a can of worms in terms of liability. It's really that simple. And disclosures, it's sad that we have a multitude of disclosures, but at the end of the day, if you can't prove that you operated in that capacity, there's vulnerability.
Matt, would you add anything?
Nope, I'm not going to add anything to that. That was great.
All right, Matt, you're our social media guru. So there's an article, and I'm not going to go through all this, but I think you need to be aware of this. So one of the conversations we've been having is, listen, prospecting works in every market and is always the best lead generation. Whether you're doing phone calls or belly to belly, door knocking, those lead generation activities are always the top of the food chain. But there's this other marketing, and I'm aware, I don't like it, but I'm aware not all real estate agents make phone calls. And the challenge is if 5 years ago, my other marketing strategies would bring me, say, 24 sales a year, those same other marketing that I was doing all along aren't always bringing me 24 sales a year today. And I'm banging my head against the wall going, I'm doing the same thing I've always done. I'm not getting the same results. And it's creating some frustration. It's creating some stuff. Well, I do believe social media is a factor of other marketing that needs to be a part of today's strategy that probably wasn't a part of yesterday's strategy. And Instagram Reels is one example of that. And this article shows 11 easy to copy trending Instagram Reel examples. Now, the challenge is how the heck do you create one, Matt?
You can look that up on AI and download an app that does it in about 15 seconds. So,
Yeah, but to the average person, it seems daunting. Would you agree?
I think so, but I think anything's daunting unless you set aside time to just investigate it. And even just review this article. All these tips in here are very simple, very
Yeah,
simple.
like coming soon community, a listing teaser, builder interview, a local airport update. I thought about, man, how many times do we go to the airport a year? If I just took 5 minutes and created a reel while I was at the airport about something at the airport, that's actually content people probably care about, right?
Brett,
Um,
this really hits on something I thought was cool, and you see a lot of the top people who are using social media do it, but it's a lot of community showcasing. versus me showcasing or, my real estate showcasing, right? It's all about communities and being tied to communities and being known in the community. But a lot of it has nothing, 99% nothing to do with you as a real estate agent. That just is marketed separately. And then the short create buzz and treasures. Like there's one on here that's setting up a new listing coming soon that's like 12 seconds. I think it's number 2. Really, really cool stuff on creating buzz.
Yeah, you want intrigue. I mean, that's the whole thing. You want to educate, and you either inspire, educate, or entertain. And so all of those are effective tools to connect with people and create more value in the relationship to have them come back. I like the short clip too. It created intrigue. It made me want to see the inside of the one where he starts out on top of that one. I'm like, all right, I'm intrigued. Where the heck is he?
Mm-hmm.
And they do it with sound, and they kind of the video jumps a little bit, like cut and pasted, so it just moves quickly. It kept my attention to the very end.
There you go. Well, overall, we're in the spring market. I think you should be experiencing success right now. If you're not, lean in, because the market is doing great right now. Yes, inventory is up. Yes, there's more competition, but buyer demand is holding, and it's increasing just like it always does in a spring market. And you should be riding that wave. Outside of that, last bit of advice.
Great.
R&D, rip off and deploy. I think any strategy outside of your market area that's working for someone that you find illustrates your value proposition or a similar value proposition is available, context for what you might do better. And so constantly top grade your social media post, your image, your website, like pay attention. This is a great time to improve how the world sees you and do it analytically and by design.
Have a good Monday. Bye, guys.